All right, so the first strategy we're going to look at is don't grade everything. And that's a big one. Like, what do I mean by this? Well, basically what I'm saying is that in equitable grading, what they suggest is that you only grade your summative assessments. Bam, that's it. So you're only grading your quizzes and tests. You're not grading homework. You're not grading classwork. You're not grading participation. You're not grading. All of that is just about grading summative assessments. That's going to reduce your grading load like ridiculous. So you can focus just on that. Now, why should we change? Well, it's first thing. It's like grading takes up too much time as it is. I did a calculation once where I had 180 students roughly, and I realized if I'd spend 60 seconds per week on every student, that's 3 hours a week. And of course, I wasn't spending 60 seconds per student a week, so I'm like, oh my gosh, no wonder I feel so overwhelmed. I am spending too much time grading. Now, the other thing is like, why are you grading the homework and the classwork? If this is not a measure of their knowledge or ability to do some skill, why are you grading it in the first place? What's the point of it? I know for me personally, a lot of times it was about motivation. I thought that by assigning it and giving it points and all that, it would motivate students to do the work, which then would help them to learn those kinds of things. And honestly, it worked for a few students. Most of the students did all the work no matter what, whether it was credit or not. And some of the students wouldn't do the work if it was for credit. So it just didn't have that big of an impact if I really, really think about it critically. Um, Honestly, compliance, like I did expect students to do what I asked them to do. And so I'm kind of like, hey, I assigned this, I created this work, I want you to do it, or else I feel like you're wasting my time. So there was a piece there where I wanted them to do my work because it's my work. And, I'm not sure that really that doesn't tell me much about what they're learning or able to do. And then, of course, like, I sometimes are told to do it, right? Told that I need to grade homework or I need to provide homework, and also like that's what I did when I went through school. I always had homework, I always had classwork, and it was always graded. So it's just I'm kind of doing what I've always done, what I know, and that may not actually be the best way to go about doing our grading after all. So why else do we not change? Let's now think about the students a little bit. Honestly, some students don't even have a place to do homework. Right? They're living in a car. They don't have a good place. They don't have internet access. Whatever it might be, they have to do. They have to work. They have to do babysitting for family members. Whatever it might be, there's all kinds of reasons and more reasons these days that students can't do it. They might be in band. They might be in a sport. Tons of things that can get in their way of doing it. So it's not equitable to make everybody do it if some people are really going to be stretched thin to do it. And do we want them to give up sleep for it? I mean, I think that's a big question. Totally true that not all students need to practice every concept, right? I mean, some of them just got it; they know it, so they don't need to practice it. And then compliance often will lead to just get it done attitude where it's like I'm going to do this and I'm just going to do it because I have to. It often leads to cheating, things like that. So again, still not a great reason to do any kind of compliance based work. Okay. Now, how do you do it? Well, it's really not too crazy of an idea, but you do have to create a culture of learning. I mean, that motivation is no longer going to come from the grade or the hammer or anything like that. You need to be setting this mindset of like, we do work in this class in order to learn, not in order to get a grade, not in order to check a box, but to learn. So starting to create that culture of a learner and learning. Give the answer keys away, right? Because again, if it's about learning, here is the answer to all the questions. I don't care how many of them you do. It's like do as many as you need in order to get it. That's really the key. Focus on the learning target, right? So again, if I want you to know how to what the laws of Newton's laws of motion are, then I want you to know those and be able to apply them, not just memorize them and be able to regurgitate them. Creating culture feedback, big one, right? So the students get this sense of it's not about compliance, it's not about doing it, it's about getting feedback. Having students provide feedback to each other, right? So student feedback structures that make it easier for them to do that. That takes time. It will take time in class to make that happen. Self-reflection, that idea of like, where am I at right now? What do I need to do to get to the next step? Super important. and peer feedback structures as well. So like they're helping each other. Those two, first and third one, are kind of the same. I think maybe they are. So, and just imagine the classroom culture you would have if you could do those that create that culture of feedback in your class. It'd be beautiful, right? If students could self-reflect and give feedback to each other and know where they are, oh, just be so great. A big one is allowing for retakes, right? So making sure that students know that they are able to retake any test or quiz so that they're not going to be penalized for not knowing on day 2, as long as they can learn by day 30, whatever it might be. They know there's this way to continue making forward progress. All right, now you will definitely deal with pushback on this one. So here's some things you can do to think about, like, why should I do work that I don't get credit for, right? So a common one is that students are like, why am I going to do this? I'm not going to get credit for it. And the answer is always because we're here to learn. That's it. We're here to learn. If you don't need to do the work to learn because you've already learned it, then don't do the work. It's not about compliance. My child should get credit for doing the work. And it's like, well, your child should get credit for learning, and the work is just there to help us get to that point. I care about your child. I want your child to learn, and if they're not learning, then whatever work they do may not be worth it. I don't want them to waste their time. That's a big one. I don't want your child to waste their time doing work that may not help them learn. State assessments are just like this. State assessments don't care how you learn, right? So it's like, this is very similar to a state assessment, except that it may be more, hopefully it's going to apply more to your students' lives. And then some other teachers may say, like, you're just dumbing down your curriculum, you're just making it easier for students. But I think the opposite is true. When you are giving credit for work that is not graded, it doesn't have any kind of like knowledge base to it, then they are saying that the compliance work can get you a better grade. And it does, right? It often will give you a situation where that student can do a better job in terms of their grade if you give them credit for, if their half of their work is based on just completion of work, they get a 50% just for completing work, whether they learn anything or not. So I think it's the opposite. If you include formative assessment in your grades, and you're probably dumbing down your curriculum. All right, so reflection time. If you are doing this for credit or for PDUs and you're doing the course, then I'd like you to put this into the Canvas course, into the little announcement section or discussion section. And so what I want you to do is just pick a few of these questions, 2 or 3 of them, and answer them, or your own question, like how would you deal with pushback? But first one is like, do you think you would use this strategy at all? Why or why not? What pushbacks have you gotten, or do you think you might get, given this strategy, from your parents, from your students, from your colleagues, whatever? Ask a colleague. Just when you're having passing time, ask the colleague what they think about the strategy, and then do you agree with them, right? And then the 3 pillars from Joe Feldman and Equitable Grading for Equity. He asks, does it increase motivation to learn for the student? Does it increase the accuracy of the grade, and is it bias resistant? So feel free to kind of ponder those questions and really think about it. All right, good luck. See you on the next tip.